Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS slate breakdown for Friday, July 19th. We're back. All-Star break is over and we're going to be breaking it down. We're going to have to skip our yesterday's review since it's been almost a week since that slate happened. But as always, we will jump into some pitchers to consider today and as well as some stacks on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Now, before we get into it, come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything we do, all the props, all the DFS. You get it all. We also have some best ball tools dropping very, very soon. Hopefully by next week, those are out. I've definitely had my hand in looking at those and helping with them, and I am pretty excited for them to come out. They will be out very, very soon. Now, let's get into this slate and check it out. All right, all welcome back. Let's get into some DFS. I am happy to be back, happy to play some DFS again. I always think that All-Star break is a little too long. All right, so we got a big 11-game slate today and no real major weather concerns, so let's just jump straight into it. Our highest owned pitcher right now at 20% is Sean Manaea, a lefty going against Miami. We got a 5-star alert score, and he's been really good this season, and especially the last 5. 3.65 over the last 20, 3.72 FIP over the last 5. Now, his ERA is 2.08 over those last 5, so maybe some regression, coming to him with the FIP so much higher, but I don't mind this spot for him. We've seen a little bit of K upside for him. He's been pitching well, and Miami is just frankly not very good. 113 ISO, 220 or 72 WOBA, striking out at 22%. We have a 25.7% K rate because over the last 20 games versus lefties, Miami's been striking out at 27% with an even lower ISO. WOBA right about the same. I think Manaea is in an interesting spot, and at 7.6K, he's just a little too cheap. So I don't mind some Manaea. Next, we got Jack Flaherty versus the Toronto Blue Jays. Flaherty has been amazing this season. He has a 31% K rate over his last 20 with a 3.3 FIP. However, over the last 5, he has a 4.11 FIP and a 2.3 ERA. So maybe some regression coming here. He hasn't been pitching quite as well. However, I do have to, point out that maybe this week off has revitalized him a little bit, and he wasn't pitching quite as well down the stretch here. Maybe he comes out blazing after a little off time. So I don't mind some Flaherty. The Blue Jays don't scare me a ton. However, I do have to point out that over the last 20 games versus righties, they are hitting 273 with a 191 ISO and a 346 WOBA. Way better than their over last 150 game splits, which they're hitting 244, 154 ISO, and a 314 WOBA. So I am interested in Flaherty, but I do have a little bit of concern because Toronto has been hitting well in the short term. Now, remember, though, there has been some time off, so maybe those bats have cooled down. You don't really know, exactly how to look at this slate because it's the first one back, but I am interested in Flaherty. I don't have a ton of interest in Toronto outside of just doing a leverage stack, so that's where we're at with Flaherty, and let's move it on to Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole finally kind of looked like Garrett Cole last time out. He went 106 pitches, had 6 innings, had 7 Ks, and now he's versus a Tampa Bay team that really doesn't scare me too much. They haven't been great versus righties over the last 20 games. So I liked the matchup here for Garrett Cole. You do have to worry about the fact that over the last 5 games, his FIP is 510. K rate 25%, so that K rate is getting close to his normal K rate of 27%, but the FIP is much higher. So, has he worked out all the kinks and is he ready to go? He's had another week. I expect that pitch count to, be around 100-ish and him fully stretched out and Garrett Cole at 100 pitches at 9K is pretty interesting. I clearly could see him being, the second highest or highest owned pitcher today with that price discount. So I don't mind some Garrett Cole. I think the matchup's fine. I wouldn't be surprised if this 5.10 FIP goes away real quick and he starts kind of pitching well. He finally did start to look good against a good Baltimore offense. So not too shabby of a spot. Next, we got Luis Castillo, 8.2K. That is just too cheap for him. Even facing Astros, he is better at home. He's averaging almost 24 fantasy points at home over the last 7 home games. And I'm a little intrigued here. He has a 3.81 FIP over his last 20, 4.4 over his last 5. So a little elevated, but not too bad. And the Astros, however, they are a very good team and been hitting great lately. 287 average over the last 20, 155 ISO, 347 WOBA. So real solid WOBA numbers, real solid average, and not striking out much, 18%. So that is the one reason to not want to go with Castillo, is just maybe a little bit of a little lower ceiling than we can typically expect from him. Now, the one thing I got to say is this guy is 8.2K, and he absolutely has the ability to get us into the 30s. For that reason, I got to consider him. But it is a little bit of a tough matchup. Next, we got Hunter Brown. Look, he's 8.4K, so he is more expensive than Castillo, but he has been pitching amazing lately. 3.65 FIP over his last 5, 23% K rate, 24.5 over the last 20. Now, we've talked about this guy. He did this last season where he went on a run where he was just absolutely unhittable. And then he goes back and reverts into this guy that puts together, 3-4 good innings in a game and then just gets smashed one inning. So are we going back into that, inconsistency pitcher, or is he going to stay that consistent pitcher? He is still a young guy, so he is still learning. Maybe he's taken another step up, but I don't totally know. However, it is a good spot for him. 140 ISO, 292 WOBA, striking out at 28.8%. Only worry here is that he's averaging 34% less fantasy points away. Now, I do have to say, with that 34% less, 33.8 to be exact, this is in Seattle, which is one of the most pitcher-friendly parks. The total ERA at Seattle this season is one of the lowest in the league. And when I see somebody that struggles away going there, I don't worry as much about them struggling away. So I'm definitely interested in Brown. His K rate, or combined K rate of 27.4 is super high, and I am a bit intrigued in this situation, especially at a little lower ownership. Next, we got JP Sears. It's versus the Angels. I don't really love this spot. I do have to point out the fact that he's only 6.3K, and when he gets it rolling, we see mid-20s from him. So for that reason alone, I'm a little intrigued. We have him at 2.3x, the medium at 14.4, median projection here. And I mean, his projection is probably right. One thing is, his most likely outcome is probably right around 12, 14-ish. But that ceiling is huge, and for that reason, I'm intrigued. We do have him at a 23.9% combined K rate at only 6.3K. He's a little lower owned. I would say he is definitely a bit intriguing in this spot. He also just went 5 innings, had 6 Ks and 0 earned runs against the Angels on July 4th. Sonny Gray versus the Braves. Interesting spot here. Sonny Gray has been just spectacular. 2.71 FIP over his last 20, 2.58 over his last 5. K rate's up there. StatCast data looks fine. Opponent team BVP looks great. Over the last 20, Atlanta hasn't been great versus righties. The combined K rates there, all signs are pointing to Sonny Gray being pretty interesting. And in a low-owned spot, I'm definitely not shying away from that spot for Sonny Gray. Next, we got Chris Bassett, 8.1K at home, 2.2x value versus the Detroit Tigers. It's obviously a very good spot, and Bassett has been a good pitcher. 3.55 FIP over his last 20, 3.44 over his last 5. The only worry with him is upside. He's got to get it going for that higher elevated K spot, and Detroit has been a little bit better about striking out recently. Over the last 20 games versus righties, 21.8% K rate versus 22.8. So 1% less. The other thing is they've actually hit Bassett pretty well. 47 plate attempts, 364, 4 home runs, 341 ISO, 21% K rate. So they've done well versus him in the past. So I'm a little apprehensive. However, I'm also very intrigued. Bassett at home can have those spike games, and he generally picks on, inferior offenses, and this is definitely one of those. So at lower ownership with a guy that can get us, mid-20s and at 8.1K, 2.2x value, I'm definitely a little bit intrigued here. Spencer Swellenbach versus the Cardinals, 7.6K, 2.2x. We got him a 3-star alert score. I'm a little intrigued. He's been pitching well. 2.91 FIP over his last 5 starts. Seems like he has settled in a little bit. That goes with the 24% K rate. The only thing here is the Cardinals have been hitting well lately. 175 ISO, 343 WOBA. And they did hit him decently the last time they saw him, which, was about a month ago or so. All in all, 22% combined K rate at 2.2x. He's pitching from home. Definitely a little intriguing, but I'm not going to try and push to get extra of him. Corbin Burns, 9.1K, 2x value. He's going low ownership, low owned. Anytime I see a pitcher this caliber going low owned, I'm a little bit intrigued. So am I going to have some Corbin? Absolutely. Am I going over the top and trying to push him in a ton? No, but I don't mind this spot for him. And my real hesitation for him is his most likely outcome is 20 to 22. That has been the range that he has been pretty much all season. He has a couple, spots where he's gone above that, but he just doesn't really have a ton of upside at this point in his career. And we only have him at a 20.9% combined K rate. So I'm not totally loving the spot. It is versus the Rangers, who are good. I just don't love the spot. Next, Tanner Bybee versus the San Diego Padres. And shout out to Cleek Kid. We are definitely a little bit of a fight this week to start the second half of the season. I need the sweep for our bet for the Padres really to have a chance of beating the Cleveland win total. But right now it looks like you're going to get it. And Tanner Bybee has been absolutely insane. 3.29 FIP over his last 20. 2.88 FIP over his last 5 with a 3.34 ERA. If anything, this guy has been pitching better than his ERA. And that all comes with a 30% K rate. He is still only 8.7K. I am absolutely intrigued to go with some Bybee. The one thing that I have to talk about that I'm worried about is the fact that San Diego doesn't strike out much. So upside might be a little limited in this spot. We have him still at a 23.7% K rate. Got him at 2.2x. He's going low owned. I'm going to have some. I don't mind this spot for him. Now, the Padres have hit him well, but it's such a small sample size. I don't even want to look at that. And, above all, look, 327 WOBA, 172 ISO, 273 average. Padres are a decent offense, but Bybee has been good, been very good, actually. And I don't mind some Bybee against my Padres. So, hate to say it, but it's just kind of how it goes today. Griffin Canning, 5.8K. He has a ceiling versus a terrible athletics team to get it done. That's the only reason I'm intrigued, because he can get you 20s at 5.8K. I wouldn't cancel him out, but I'm definitely not trying to push extra of him. Edward Cabrera at home is much better than away, 77% more fantasy points while home. K rate is there to get it done at only 6.6K. We have seen a game where he's put up 10Ks. He's had 7K games, 9K games. I'm a little bit intrigued by going with Cabrera. We have him at 2.1X. It is against the Mets, though, and the Mets have been hot lately. So 262 average, 231 ISO, 357 WOBA. The offense has kind of been rolling lately. So I don't love Cabrera, but he is another value play that I'm at least interested in. There's a lot of value plays on this slate, pitching-wise, that, I think you could go to. Zach Eflin is another one. He's been pitching well. 3.74 FIP, 3.75 over the last 5. The thing with him is, the New York offense obviously has some upside. However, they've been struggling lately. And there's just not a huge upside in the K department in this spot. However, he has faced them twice this year. Went for 7 innings, 6 Ks, 1 earned run, and 6 innings, no earned runs, and 6 Ks. He also did well versus them last year. So maybe he has, maybe he can just pitch well against this team. Maybe he's got something that they just can't hit. So I am a little bit intrigued with a super low-owned Eflin where really nobody's going to go there. Matt Waldron has had some big-time upside spots this year, but I don't think this is one of them, and I think his price is just a little bit high for me to really want to go there. Got to talk about Evaldi, even though it is against Baltimore. The guy is just a solid pitcher and has solid upside, and in a spot where nobody's going there, I'm at least intrigued to throw out 1 or 2 of him in a lineup, but I'm not going overboard. Let's get over to FanDuel, see what we got here ownership-wise. Garrett Cole being the highest owned. I am not surprised at that at all. He is 9.6K, so a little bit higher price, but he's in a great spot. Hunter Brown next, 9.1K. I'm totally in on that. Sean Manaea, the highest owned on DraftKings, is the 3rd highest here on FanDuel. His price is elevated a little bit here, but I am very intrigued with a little bit of a lower price tag in a good spot with a 5-star alert score. So I definitely may have some Manaea, even though he's a little higher priced here on FanDuel. Castillo, 9.3K, under 10% owned. The ceiling is there for him. I'm intrigued. Flaherty, 9.7. There's a giant ceiling for him. So for that reason, I'm intrigued. And then Sonny Gray, 10.4K is getting a little pricey for him, but I'm still absolutely considering him as I would Tanner Bybee. Michael Wacha is somebody that we didn't talk about on DraftKings, and I actually wish I did. 3.75 FIP, 3.95 over the last 5, 21% K rate. He's going against the White Sox that have struck out 24.1% over the last 20. Low ISO, low WOBA. It is a great matchup for a guy that easily could go 6+ innings in this spot. And when he does that, he generally is able to rack up some Ks. He can absolutely get into that 6 to 8K range. And at 8.9K in a great matchup at home, I'm a bit intrigued. He's had 62 plate attempts against these guys. They're hitting 193. They're not striking out much, but they're not doing much. So I am absolutely intrigued by going with some Wacha that is super low owned. And I would say that I would even be into him on DraftKings also. But with the quality start and win bonus on FanDuel, I like him a little bit more on FanDuel than I do on DK. Bassett, I'll probably sprinkle some in, but not going overboard with it. Nick Pivetta is in a very tough spot. It's versus the Dodgers. There's 2 ways to go. This game goes in my eyes. Pivetta lets up a couple home runs and he has a bad outing, or he's unhittable and has a good outing. I don't think there's much of a middle ground in this spot. That's just kind of how Pivetta works. It's either his stuff is deceptive and he's getting a ton of swing and miss, or he's allowing home runs, and it's really hard to know which Pivetta you're getting from game to game. And rest of this on good old the FanDuel, probably not really going there. Might sprinkle in some Eflin, but that's probably about it. And let's take a look at some stack attacks in this spot. All right, so our highest ceiling stack of the day is the New York Mets versus Cabrera. Makes some sense. Cabrera, while he does have strikeout stuff, hasn't been that great. And for that reason, I'm in on the Mets. Mets have also been hot coming into the break. Can they stay hot? Who knows, but I'm definitely a little intrigued at low ownership. Oakland versus Griffin Canning is interesting. They just put up a giant score right before break. So I think for that reason, you got to be a little bit intrigued there, as well as, look, we got a Colorado game. So Colorado makes some sense. The Giants make some sense. And what else we have here? Let's go to the highest owned. Well, now my dog's barking. Our highest owned stacks of the day. We got KC. I cannot believe it's not the Giants or Colorado. Just simply Colorado game. However, KC, that game total is 9, and they are the biggest favorites on the slate. That is another reason to maybe like Waka, as it's just a bigger chance of that win bonus. Now, Royals are versus Flexen, who just frankly isn't good. Makes a lot of sense to want to go there. Royals score fantasy points in a lot of different ways too. So I'm not that surprised, just because of their median projection in this spot should be pretty high. Angels are popping up versus JP Sears a little bit. 6.5 FIP over his last 5. 4.92 over his last 20. Sears pitched well the last 2 games, though. So that is an interesting one. Pivetta. Very, very interesting spot, as I said, as Pivetta can go either way. He either absolutely crushes or gets crushed. So the smaller 2-3 stacks from the Dodgers, I think, are super interesting today. You could go 5-man. It's just, with that Dodgers lineup, it's so top-heavy, it's just hard to go 5-man sometimes with them. Giants, Colorado game, makes sense. Let's go our highest projected stacks now. And we got Mets. We got Boston. Boston's versus Gavin Stone. I don't love that spot. Gavin Stone's been super good. ERA 3.35 on the season. 3.93 FIP. He's been good lately. Now he's going to be super low owned, so I get it, but I don't love the spot for Boston. The Mets I am pretty intrigued about. And Colorado, obviously, versus Kyle Harrison. Who is decent. He's okay, but he can get got, and in Colorado, anything can happen. So definitely intrigued to go there. Let's go to the highest value. Nope. Our highest value, does it gonna pop up? All right, we got Oakland versus Griffin Canning. Makes a ton of sense. Canning has got shelled all year, and Oakland has had some giant outbursts offensively. So I don't mind some Oakland there. Who else did we have here before I double clicked the value button? Worst value, Cleveland, Braves. Both make a lot of sense. All right, Toronto is also popping up versus Jack Flaherty. Like I said, Toronto has been hitting righties very, very well. So a leverage stack there could make some sense, but I don't absolutely love it. Now let's click the teams here, get a little overall view, talk about some people that maybe we have missed. So San Francisco, highest implied total by 0.5 runs at 5.6. They're versus Cal Quantrill, who has had a run of being an okay pitcher this year, but over his last 5 has a 6.23 ERA. The bullpen behind him, FIP. Bullpen behind him is terrible. Makes a ton of sense there. KC at 5.1. Flexen, 5.62 FIP over his last 5. Bullpen is terrible. Makes total sense. And then Colorado with 4.9 versus Kyle Harrison. And he has been allowing 46% hard contact, 92 mile an hour average exit velocity. The bullpen behind him is meh. So absolutely makes some sense to want to go there. Next, Dodgers at 4.6, Mets at 4.6, Cabrera, 66.7% hard contact with 92.7 mile an hour average exit velocity. I think you absolutely are going to want some Mets stacks in. Now, if they get high owned with that Cabrera K rate, I don't mind sprinkling in some Cabrera in a spot where nobody's really going to go there. Oakland and the A's, both at 4.5. Both are a little interesting in this spot. And then you get to Cleveland at 4.4. I got to talk about Matt Waldron. He has a 5.18 FIP over his last 5, but he's been pretty good on the season. Now, it's the knuckleball. I say it every time. It is inherently inconsistent. And if it is not working, Matt Waldron turns into batting practice. So I absolutely do like a few Cleveland stacks. I wouldn't go overboard because I think Waldron's a solid pitcher and been very good all year, but he's going to have blow-up games, and he absolutely could do it today. Yankees versus Eflin, I don't love. A's, I don't love. Baltimore, I don't love. St. Louis versus Wellenbach, I don't love. Toronto, could be leverage stacks here. Boston, I don't like. Any other leverage stack? No, that's about it. That's where I'm going. I guess you could go a Tampa Bay leverage stack versus Cole, since he is high owned and has that FIP of 5.10 so far for this over the last 5. So I think that is a little bit of an interesting spot where you could get some leverage if you wanted to as well. All right, guys, that'll do it for us today. I think it's a interesting slate. There's a lot of pitchers you can go to, but still a decent amount of stacks. So we will be able to get different. We'll be able to pick our spots. Good luck. Welcome back to baseball season. Let's go. Have a good one, guys. I'll talk to you later.